popular at the time.
You know, I remember seeing a clip of you at the time. I think there was a press conference and a reporter said something to the effect of, Governor DeSantis, aren't you suing the Biden administration, challenging the administration for interfering in the operation of the state? You know, the gist of the question was more or less, isn't it hypocritical of you to then block the cities and counties from doing these types of COVID policies that they want to enact? And you said something to the effect of, the last time I checked, it's the United States of America, not the United Counties or school boards of America. And what do you think of this, of this phenomenon where a lot of people in this room care a lot about state sovereignty and the strength of a state, but what do you think of this phenomenon of state power getting squeezed from the top by the federal governments and then from the bottom by their own cities and counties? And does that leave states weaker when they're getting squeezed from both directions?
Well, we don't allow us to get squeezed from the bottom. We fight back, and it's right. I mean, look, the federal government's powers are few and defined. Those reserved to the states are numerous and indefinite. Madison, Federalist 45. The local governments, cities and counties, they're creatures of the state. The state pre-existed them. We have enacted boundaries for counties and municipalities. And so when people say, how can you fight federal overreach, but then yet want to limit what a local government can restrict their citizens on, that only seems hypocritical if you have no concept of the structure of our government. So keeping the federal government within its proper bounds. So Biden, when he is saying that you have to either get a COVID shot or you would potentially lose your job, and he's doing that through OSHA, through an administrative dictate. They do not have the authority to do that under the Constitution, period. I don't even think Congress could, but to the extent you think Congress could, clearly the executive just unilaterally doing that goes outside the bounds. And even the U.S. Supreme Court agreed. They did not agree on the medical. I think that was a huge mistake. We passed legislation saying nurses did not have to be, doctors, nurses could make that decision too. Biden sued us, or Biden fined us, and I paid the fine. I'm like, I don't care. Take the money. I just want to protect the jobs. So we were battling them acting outside their constitutional authority. When I was reigning in local governments, I was acting within the authority of the state, really being the primary political actor in our universe. And so, yes, I think this administration wants to empower the states. I think you're going to see that in a lot of, I mean, the media is hitting Trump on FEMA because he's like, oh, we're going to dismantle FEMA. Like, oh, well, what is Florida going to do of that? Well, first of all, if you tell me the federal government's getting out of that business entirely, I've got a massive surplus. I'll budget more money for disasters, and I'll handle it. Just tell me. Just tell me what you want to do. So I don't need FEMA at all. If you tell me that those programs are not going to be available, I'll change, how we handle things, and we'll get it done. We'll make it happen. But that's not what Trump is saying. What he's saying is, and this is true, if you look at how much a disaster would cost, like how much does a major hurricane cost in certain populated areas, and if you just gave me 80% of that in a block grant and cut FEMA out entirely, that money would go much further than having 20% more filtered through this ridiculous bureaucracy. And I think that's what he wants to do. I think he wants to eliminate the bureaucrats, block grant the money, and then let us make these decisions. Some states will make poor decisions. That's fine. But so much of this bureaucracy is just self-defeating. It defeats the purpose of the program to be able to offer emergency assistance to people. So I do think you're going to see where he's going to try to get that. They're going to try to dismantle education. And now he wouldn't impose some of these mandates that Biden was trying to do. Biden, because we did the women's sports bill, they responded by saying that we were going to be eligible for free and reduced lunch. I mean, think about that. You don't want a 14-year-old girl to have to participate in a track meet against a man, so therefore you're going to take food from hungry kids. I mean, this is woke ideology rung amok. I don't think the Trump administration would want to do any of that stuff, obviously, but I do think that they're going to look to remove bureaucracy. They probably will block grant money to the states. But again, you could block grant a fraction of what you're doing now with no strings attached, and states can do it what they want and probably will do a much better job.
That's really interesting.